Tana is amazing, right? But it can be tricky. So in this video, I will show you how to use Tana for your personal knowledge management. This is the full crash course for Tana beginners. I will guide you step by step. Together we will build the very elegant, very minimalistic, yet super robust system that will help you to integrate all of your knowledge, all of your content, all of your ideas from multiple contexts, from multiple sources into one place, into Tana. So let's dive into it. And this is a starting point. We're going to start from the bunch of unprocessed highlights from the amazing book called Ontology of Balaji. Balaji, of course, is the absolute legend of the Silicon Valley. He worked at Andreessen Horowitz. He co-founded many amazing companies, and he also invested into many amazing companies like Superhuman and Rome Research, for example. And Mark Andreessen, another Silicon Valley legend, told about Balaji that Balaji has the highest good idea output rate of anyone I know. So we're going to use Balaji's ideas as a source material for this video. So these are the highlights from Balaji's book. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to process them. I'm going to give them a structure, and I'm going to use very basic Tana outlining functionality at the moment. So first of all, when we review the highlights, we're going to see that they roughly go into the three topics. First topic is technology, the second topic is crypto, and the third topic is media. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a bunch of headings, and I'm going to indent all of the information related to the one specific heading underneath it. So now I'm going to go ahead and continue processing. I'm trying to build information hierarchy here. I want to make information more scannable and granular. I want to break it into smaller, more easily cognitively manageable chunks. I want to distill key points, key ideas, and I want to filter out stuff I don't need, because in highlights there are a lot of things that are essentially noise. As you see, I'm heavily using indentation here. Tana is the infinite outliner, so I can create the infinite levels of nodes hierarchy. And I'm also using some highlighters just to make the accent on some key points and key ideas I don't want to miss. For example, here the central idea is technological innovation drives moral innovation, and all other text is basically here to either support this claim or provide additional context for it. Also, this highlight introduces three very important concepts: panarchy, polycentric law, and about sorting. And I want to make them distinct. I want to put each one of them into the separate node, and later on we're going to linger on them. And now I will just continue with two other topics, crypto and media. Again, I will use very basic tools. I use indentation, I use formatting, highlighter, bold text. Also trying to add some of my personal touch, add characters I prefer, for example, arrows. And again, my goal here is to make this text more scannable, break it into more manageable chunks. And I will speed up the video a little bit. And here's the end result. So here on the left you see my process highlights, and on the right unprocessed highlights. And you see on the left there's clear and nice information hierarchy, easy to work with, easy to navigate. And this is the result, pretty much the result we were aiming at. Okay, so now let's talk about nodes. Nodes, it's somewhat counterintuitive to think about Tana. I know many beginners find it counterintuitive. That's because in other tools, there's a difference between blocks and pages, right? And this difference is reasonable because it's coming from the physical world. In the physical world, we got page and we got paragraphs on the page, which are blocks. So this conceptualization from the real world became very widespread in the digital tools too. For example, in Obsidian, there are pages and there are blocks. In Notion, there are pages and there are blocks. But in Tana, it's different. In Tana, every block is a page and is a node, right? And this is very important. And again, not super intuitive sort of in your at the first glance. So for example, if we go back to the Balaji's book, what are we going to see? We got 3 sections, and each section can be viewed as a page. So on a page, there are many blocks, and dashboards is the block on the page media. But dashboards is the page too, right? It can have an icon. It can have a sort of nice banner picture, which I generated in Midjourney. So it looks like a page. It can be different weight, and there are blocks in it. Each of the blocks on it can be a page too, right? So this is very, very important to understand. This idea of infinite outliner provides you an opportunity to build very nice information hierarchies, right? So this is the first tool you use to structure and connect your knowledge hierarchy, where something is a parent and something is a child. And if we look on the nodes from this perspective, what we're going to see, there are children and they have parents. And if we go one node above, we're going to have a grandparents. Later on, this distinction is going to be very useful to us, especially when we're going to query things. But for now, we need to understand that hierarchy is one of the tools to structure and connect your information inside Tana. So now let's go to the different tool. Let's talk about references. Reference is a very important component of Tana. It is one of the key principles that you use in PKM to connect things, to contextualize things. And there are two types of references. So to explore them, let's go back to the Balaji's book. So here in the crypto section, we see this concept of quantifiable alignment. And it's very relevant for crypto, right? But it is also very relevant for tech. So what we can do, we can simply copy it, hitting Command C or Control C on Windows, and just copy it to the tech node. This way we will create the regular reference. Now let's explore inline references. For this, I will go to the blockchains node and I will do some housekeeping there just to make sure I have this nice indented logic here that blockchains enable distributed consensus for these questions. But also blockchains connected to this concept, right? Quantifiable alignment. And what I will do, I will add some context here, meaning blockchains enable transparent and verifiable protocol. So they enable quantifiable alignment. And I will do exactly the same. I will just copy quantifiable alignment here. But what you see now, it's slightly changed view, right? Because you see the quantifiable alignment on inside the same node, and this is the inline reference. So if we go to the quantifiable alignment, we're going to see two backlinks, and backlinks are obviously very popular, very widespread concept in PKM. They allow you in Tana, they allow you to see the reference to the node from which there is a link. So in other case, we have two links to this specific concept of quantifiable alignment. One is it mentioned in the blockchains, and we see that it mentions there using the inline reference. And again, inline references allow you to add additional context to the node if you want to link something. And another connection, it's connection to the tag. So remember what we did? We took the link from the quantifiable alignment, which is located in the crypto node, under the crypto node, and we put it into the tag. So now it referenced from the tag. So this is very, very important because during the time it allows for your knowledge to grow, right? You're gonna have multiple connections and you're gonna have multiple context from which you can view this specific concept, this specific idea, or this specific piece of technology. And this is in a nutshell how the inline references or references in general work. Okay, so now let's see what we did from the perspective of the contexts. We had three different contexts, right? The first context is the tag, the second is crypto, the third is the blockchains. And the node quantifiable alignment initially located under the crypto node, so in the crypto context. So what we did, first of all, we duplicate the node making the reference to the tag context. So now we see that quantifiable alignment is relevant for crypto and it is also relevant for tag. And then what we did, we also duplicate this specific node to the blockchains context. But what we did also, we added additional context where I wrote that blockchains enable transparent and verifiable protocols. So they basically enable quantifiable alignment. So you see, now we have this specific node that we can view from the 3 different contexts. And in terms of location, the beauty of Tana, things can be located anywhere because later on you can discover them using the queries. But also, if you want your node to be located in the specific place, so for example, in this case, if you want your node to be located not in the crypto but in a tag, what you do, you go to the command key and you bring this reference node there. So now it's located under the tag and it has the reference under the crypto. And the important principle here that you can sort of differentiate between regular references and inline references. With the mental model, you can view the regular reference as just a symbol, a shortcut, right? Because there's like the whole node and it's the shortcut to the original node. Whereas the inline reference is more like a hyperlink, right? So those 2 mental models can help you to better understand how to differentiate between those 2. And here I want to introduce you to another very important principle of PKM, which calls single source of truth. So we use references because we don't want to duplicate this specific node, right? We want all of the information connected to this quantifiable alignment be under this specific node. And we reference it in a multiple different contexts, but we always have this single source of truth, this specific node. This is very, very important concept. And in Tana, many beginners start to duplicate nodes all over the place. And this is problematic because obviously you will end up with a huge mess, and it's going to be hard to maintain your PKM system. So don't make this mistake. So just to sum it up, references allow you to connect things, connect different parts of your workspace, connect different concepts and ideas. They allow you to maintain visibility in the places where you need them. They allow you to contextualize and recontextualize things. They allow you to discover and retrieve relevant information later on in your journey, and we will definitely cover it later in the video. And they also allow you to follow this principle of single source of truth, which is very, very important in PKM. Okay, so this is the basic stuff. We learn how to use Tana as outliner, how to use formatting, how to use indentations, how to use references. So now let's go a little bit into more advanced things from fundamentals. I'm sure you heard of Supertags, right? And when you got into Tana, you already got for you a few Supertags created, but that's just the beginning. So Supertag is a concept that might be a bit counterintuitive to Tana beginners. In real life, we kind of get used to this notion of the tag, which is something that you put on something. It's the label that you put on something. And this label doesn't add any properties to the object. And in Tana it's different. In Tana, supertags are basically data structure. What it means. So let's take a book, for example. And a typical book has this set of parameters that are characteristics to this object. And what are those parameters? This is for example, the cover, the year of the publishing, the order or the orders, format in which the book is available, Kindle format or paperback format. So here you see, when we create this Supertag in Tana, we want to basically implement all of those parameters that will later on will help us to define this object. In our case, it's the book. So let's do exactly this. Let's build a structure for the book using the Supertag. So I'm going to start just by simply typing the book, and I want to add order already because those two Supertags are obviously connected. And I will hit Command K and convert them both to the Supertags. And now I will start to configure in the book. I will go to the content template here, right? And what I want to have here, first of all, I would probably change the color of the Supertag. And then I would start to add the parameters, the characteristics. So the cover, then I will go with the year published, by field, which will be connected to the author, and the format. So the next thing I want to do, I want to configure those fields. And obviously the year published would have the type date. And the by would be the options from Supertag, because I want this field by to be connected to the author, right? So when I go to the book, I will be able to select the relevant authors for this specific book. Now let's configure the format. For format, I will use the options field. And that means I need to explicitly define the options that would be available in this field. In this situation, it's going to be the hardcover, the paperback, and the ebook. Let's stay with this three. So now I pretty much have this book super tag ready. So now let's apply this super tag to the book we are working on, to the book of Ontology. And you see now this node, the Ontology of Ontology, after we tag it, got these 4 fields. And now we will use those fields to essentially input the information there, and some of the information will be helpful for us to later on to retrieve things, right? For example, we can see all the books by the same order, or we can see all of the books that we have in a specific format. And now, as you see, the cover field covers a lot of real estate of this specific node. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this field hidden. So when I need to see this cover, it will always be there, but it's not taking too much real estate of the book node. So the next thing, what I want to do, I want to go to the processed nodes, the things that we are working on early on, and I want to categorize some of them using the specific supertags. I want to make them more granular, and by categorizing them, I add the information about them, what it means. So for example, if I go here and I will go back to this technology and prices, and this is the reference to this famous visual economist chart, and how will I tag it? I would tag it as data, right? Because this is the chart containing the data and Ontology referring to it. And this is obviously going to be very useful for me later on when I want to refer to this data, when I want to use it as the evidence to, for example, to substantiate some of my arguments. And I have this chart here. So for now, I will just copy paste it under indented node. And later on, I will show you how to use data super tag to store it properly. So the next on the menu, this idea that fire is a technology. So first of all, I will create the fire node and I will tag it as a technology, right? I will have the super tag just to make it shorter. And I will simply apply it to the fire node. So now I classify fire as a technology. And this is a very important thing in terms of applying super tags to the nodes. Because it's not just about organizing things, it's about making sense of things, right? It's about having the perspective of things. For example, here, if I categorize fire as a technology, it will provide me this additional information and additional frame to think about a fire. So it's not like just the element of organization, but it's the element of me better understanding this phenomena of fire and better understanding this phenomena of technology. And this idea of coevolution, I will tag it as a concept. And the whole idea of fire as a technology, I will categorize it as insight because it's a pretty non-obvious idea for me and I might want to explore it later on. The next node is technological innovation drives moral innovation. And I think it's a very nicely compressed idea. So I will just use it as a quote. As you see, I'm creating the super tags here just by merely hitting the hash key and typing the super tag name after the node. So the next one is the panarchy, and panarchy is one of the most interesting and important concepts of this book for me. So I will definitely tag it as a concept. Here we have a decentralization, which first of all I need to create. I need to create the specific node because it's the part of this larger sentence. So I will create the specific node and I will tag the decentralization as the concept. Okay, the next one is everything technology is doing means more upside and more downside. Again, very condensed, very well put idea. So I will use it as a quote. And the next one will be the quantifiable alignment, which is also one of the most important concepts from this book. So obviously I will go ahead and tag it as a concept. So as you see here, merely by filtering and categorizing things, I already create a lot of new useful information for me and for future me, for my future self, who would be working with these concepts and ideas. Yeah, and I'll probably also change the color for the concept super tag because red is kind of indicate some kind of the danger here. So next thing, I will go through the crypto section and through the media section, and I will do exactly the same thing. I will categorize things using the super tags we created previously, which is namely concept, the quote, the technology, and data. And I will speed up the video a little bit. And now we get back to this dashboard node. Remember, we already spent some time tweaking and working on this node, and it looks pretty good. And now we also add the concept super tag to it, just to continue to working on this specific node, which would be very important for us later on in the journey. Okay, so now we have this pretty nice collection of super tag, which we know already pretty useful. The problem we have now, we kind of don't understand how they connected. I mean, we kind of understand, but it's better for us to make this relationship between them explicit. And for this, we're going to use the ontology. So ontology is kind of a fancy word from the knowledge management world. And to simplify it, it means this set of concepts and the relationship between concepts. So this is how our ontology looks at the moment. We have these 5 entities. Some of them are pretty abstract, like a concept or insight. Some of them less abstract, like data and technology. And what we say in here, all of those things, they can be derived from the book, because we have only the book as the source for all of these things, right? And obviously in real life, it's not just books. It can be the podcast, it can be the articles, any type of content that you work with would be based on pretty much similar ontology. So, but for the sake of this build, we're trying to keep things simple. So they are from the book and the book by the author. So you see the characteristic of the good ontology is you can read it just simply by following the order of the arrows, right? So we can say concept is from book and book by the author. That is it. That is the good ontology. Very simple, but very robust. The only thing is missing here. You see, we have all of these entities. They're essentially containers for all of the things that we can get from the book. And it's a good thing for us to have some kind of the more abstract entity that we can call block. That will be some kind of the proto entity for all of these 5s, right? And the idea now here that from the book, we can get blocks, and the concept is a block, insight is a block, quote is a block, right? So now we have this more abstract entity block, which can be viewed as a sort of lowest common denominator. And those kind of proto entities, they are very, very useful in Tana, and we're going to see it later on. But for now, our ontology is essentially complete. Again, pretty simple, pretty minimalistic, yet very robust and meaningful. So we're going to continue to use it, and we're going to continue to develop it. So now let's explore those 5 super tags. The next logical step for us to make them even more useful by adding the specific fields, the fields that will be helpful for us in working with this type of entity. For example, for the concept, that would be good to have a definition of the concept. And it would be good to have a domain or domains to which this concept belongs to. For the quote, obviously we need an order. And for the data, it will be useful for us to have the specific field for the chart or any other visual information, maybe infographics, and also the field for the timestamp that will help us to track the relevance of this particular data. So now let's implement all of this. First, we need to create 2 additional super tags. One of them already familiar to us, which is the block, and another one will be the domain. It's going to be useful for us later on to connect concepts to the domain. So what I'm going to do, I'm simply type block and domain, and I will hit Command K and I will convert them to the super tags. And now let's configure the block. First of all, I would make it the gray because the base super tag should be gray in my view. I will also add the description for this particular super tag because it's pretty non-obvious. And I will have only one field here, which is the from field. And this from field I will initialize as the options from the super tag book. Remember, we can only, and this specific build, we can only get the blocks from the book. But again, if you're working with the different sources like podcasts or articles, right? What you can do, you can create the basic Supertag content and you can use book, article, podcast on top of it, following exactly the same principle that I'm using now. Namely, I will get the concept and I will hit extends from and I will use the block. So now I told Tana that concept extends block. What it does multiple things. But the most importantly, it categorizes the concept as a block. And the second of all, the entity which extends something. Inherit all of the fields from the entity it extends from. So in our case, the concept extends block, so it will get this from field, which is very, very useful for us because we want to attribute concepts to the book. Also, I will add description field here. And also here, I will add the domain field, which would be the options from Supertag of the domain. So I will connect the concept and domain using this field. Now we'll go to the quote, and this is very simple. I will simply reuse the by field, which I use to define the orders for the book. And since it's exactly the same field, it performs exactly the same function, so it's better to reuse it and not to create the many fields in Tana that essentially perform the same function. It will be a lot easier to maintain the system for you later on. And now let's configure the inside Supertag. We're gonna add the description here. And this time we're not gonna reuse the description we already have. I will tell you why later on. And also the insight is the extension of the block. Insights can be derived from the book. And here I go to the tag and it also extends the block. And I will add option here, meaning that I want to operate on a different type of technologies. And I will add the category field here, meaning I want to operate with the different categories of technologies. And this is going to be the option field. So I will define options explicitly here. I'll probably have something like a digital technology. Maybe later on I change it. Something like a biotech, maybe nanotech. That's enough for now. Later on we can always adjust it. And now the last but not least, data. Here I will always use the extension. Data is a block. I will create the chart field. And since we're gonna add images to this field, I will keep it simple text, because in Tana, if you wanna add image to the field, it doesn't have to have a specific type. The plain text is totally fine. And the last would be the timestamp field, which I make the date type. So now let's try to make the system we made more useful. For that, we need to input additional information into the fields we just created. And here I have the 5 blocks from the Pelagi's book. And as you see, those blocks are different kind of blocks: concept, insight, and so on. And I will show you how different structures, different supertags, allow us to make each one of them more useful. We're going to start with the concept of the panarchy. So here I will select the book from which this concept is coming from. And also I will add the definition for the specific concept for me to always have this definition at hand. And also I will connect it to domain. In this case, this is the domain of political science. Let's continue with the insight about the fire. So here I have a description, but I think description is not particularly the thing I need here. So here what I want to do, I want to basically share my perspective on this insight. Why is it interesting for me? Why is it non-obvious for me? And the reason here would be that I've clearly underestimated the influence of the fire as a technology on the human civilization and human evolution. So just to capture the essence of this comment and adapt this supertag to my needs, I will simply rename this field of description to the field of perspective. And I will also add the description for this field, just for me to do not forget that. What am I using it for? Let's continue with the quote. Everything is very straightforward here. This is the quote by Balaji. Nothing fancy. Now the data. Here, first of all, we have this chart field and we have the chart. So I will obviously move this chart into the chart field. So every time I look at any particular data, I know where to look for the visual information. And also here we have a timestamp, and I will just simply add the timestamp with the specific data. And we also got a tag. So here we have a blockchain. So I will put it into the category of the digital technologies. And this is the way the PKM works in Tana, right? Because I know many beginners, when they start in Tana, they just create one super tag note and they put their notes in there. I would say it's pretty unreasonable because you're basically using Tana on 10%, right? It's like buying a sport car and driving it at 10 miles per hour. So the idea of knowledge management in Tana, that you create these specific containers, and these containers, they embed part of your knowledge inside themselves, right? Supertags, not just merely something that labels things, but that embeds knowledge, right? A good example here with the classifying fire as a technology. Just by attributing fire to the technology, we add in semantics to it. So this way, the supertags become essential embedded part of your knowledge. Now let's make things more interesting. I will add quite a few new nodes to our workspace. I will add 3 more books, several additional categories for the tag, new domains, and new concepts. And the interesting thing here, the more information we add to our workspace, and of course, it should be the quality information, not just a bunch of anything. It should be carefully curated and filtered. And if we add this type of information to our Tana, it actually makes the whole system more useful and more valuable to you. And one of the ways of capture this value is through unlinked mentions on the bottom of every node. Essentially, unlinked reference is the search mechanism that if you have a node with a certain name, Tana will automatically search throughout your workspace, or perhaps even multiple workspaces, the mentions of this specific name. And this can become your goldmine for insights, interesting ideas, and unexpected meaningful connections. And now, with all of these updates, let me show you what our system is capable of. Let's go back to the fire node. Fire, remember, we classified as a technology. And as you see now with the new categories, I will link it to the energy and to the manufacturing. And here inside the tag, I put this inside fire is a technology, right? A little bit redundant, but I will show you where I'm going with that. Here we already have our perspective for us. And now let's go to the reference section. And here I have 7 unlinked mentions of the fire. And I will go through them one by one. And here I see the mention from the book Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century. And I think it's very cool and very interesting. And I will link it just by clicking the link button in the corner. And I will scan through the rest of the reference. And there's another very interesting mention of the fire from the book How the World Really Works. And I will also link it. So now you see I have these 3 linked references, which gives me a lot of additional ideas and information about the fire perceived as the technology. So keeping them as the links is useful, but what is going to be more useful is actually explicitly outline why is this particular link is important for me. This is exactly what I'm going to do now. So the first reference I find really useful and interesting. This is the reference from the Hunter-Gatherer Guides for the 21st Century book, and it gives the perspective on the fire not just by merely a tool, for example, for cooking food and for burning things in order to use them later, but fire as the sort of organizing principle for human societies, where people gather together around the campfire, share the ideas. And I will take this specific nodes that unpack this, and now we'll select them all and reference them under this idea. And this section from the book, How the World Really Works, gives us another interesting perspective on fire. It shows the fire as the tool that humans use to shape their environment. So basically, it's the first terraforming tool that we ever invented and encountered. I will take this specific node and reference it here. But also now I see that in the first reference, there's also mentioned this idea of fire being the terraforming tool. So what I'm going to do, I'm obviously going to reference it too. So now, as you see, my insight is pretty well developed, and we're going to use it later on to synthesize new knowledge. And now, just to sum it up on what we just did, we use this node fire to connect 3 different books, to connect the ideas from the 3 different books, right? So this way, fire became some kind of the star connector. In the knowledge management, those things called star connectors. Basically, this is the node that allow you to meaningfully connect many different pieces of information. And when you work with your personal knowledge management system, think of what is star connector for you. Here for us, this is the technology, and we can connect many different ideas and concepts and context using the specific pieces of technology. But maybe for you it's something different. Maybe it's the concept or idea. Maybe it's the claim. Maybe it's the argument. Maybe it's the question. This is very important, to think of those things and shape those things to make your PKM system not just the storage of information, but actually your sense-making partner. And all of those things in Tana can be viewed as the data sets. And when you have a data set, it means that you can apply structural queries in order to retrieve relevant information. It's important to understand that Tana is essentially a graph database. It combines the features of knowledge graph in database, and this is what makes it unique. And this is especially helpful when we're talking about information retrieval, because we can use queries. And let me show you how the queries in Tana work. Let's create the query that searches all of the concepts from the Ontology's book. For that, I will simply type the question mark, and now I'm able to create a query. And here I need to use the Supertag concept, because this is what we're looking for, right? We're looking for the concepts. For the concepts with the field from, where in this field there is the specific book, the Ontology of Ontology. So you see, now we have the list of concepts from the book, but it's not a very useful representation. I would prefer to actually use the table. So for this, I will change the view. And what am I able to do now? I can, using this table view, I can attribute each concept to the domain. So I will do exactly that. This is going to be especially useful later on for us when we're going to use all of these connections to navigate our workspace. Now let's create another query. Again, we're going to start with a question mark. And the idea of this query is to utilize this base supertag that we have, the block supertag. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to query all of the blocks from the Ontology's book. And as you see now, I have all of them. I have the concepts, I have the data, I have the technology, insight. Everything we mark is essentially here available for us. Now let's make it more interesting. Remember, I added a few books to the workspace, and one of them was the What's Our Problem book by the Tim Urban. And there I have 2 additional concepts, Golem and the Genie. Let's explore them. Essentially, those concepts allow us to explore how ideas form and compete in the societies. So you see here, now I have this nice visual. So what I want to have something similar that we have in the data supertag. I want to have a dedicated field for the visual information. So I'll create just that. Again, just a simple plain text field. And obviously those 2 concepts are connected together, right? Genie is connected to Golem and a Golem is connected to Genie. So I want to be able to connect them using this structure. So for this, I will create the related concepts field, and I will make it the instance of the concept supertag. This way, I have a systematic and structural way of connecting different concepts inside my workspace. And now let's just utilize those fields. Let's move the picture into the visualization field, and let's relate those two concepts. Let's interlink them. And as you see here, I actually reusing the same visual, so I will not add it twice to the Tana. Instead of, I will use the reference to this specific image. Perfect. So now our two additional concepts are ready. We added all of the relevant information there. So now let's see how we can use queries to actually interconnect information between several different books. We already saw it on the fire example, right? But in the fire example, we use simple regular references. We didn't use fields. We didn't use specific fields to connect things. And now we have a field. We have a field related concepts. So let's put it into use. So now I will create another query. I will call this query media literacy concepts. I will query concepts, where domain is media literacy. And those concepts should be derived from the books What is a Problem by Tim Urban and Ontology of Biology. Nice. Let's see what we got. Okay, we have the 5 concepts here. Now I will again change the view. I want to view them as the table. Beautiful. So now, as you see, I have this related concepts field, and it's there only for the 2 concepts, for the golem and for the genie. So what I'm going to do now, I will try to interconnect all the concepts between each other. Dispatch mechanism is relevant for the dashboard. Mimetic is connected both to golem and genie, and vice versa, dispatch mechanism connected to the dashboard. In Tana, we don't have two-way fields yet, so this is how we need to solve this problem at the moment. And now let's look at the golem and the genie. Obviously, they are connected to mimetic, so let's add just that. So you see now our workspace becoming more and more useful because many components connects to each other. Now we connected concepts to the domain, we connected concepts between each other, and this is what PKM is all about, right? Connecting things, creating meaningful connections to get new idea, new insights, to produce new knowledge. So now let me show you a few more neat tricks. First of all, let's go to the domain of media literacy. As you see here, we have all of the concepts in the reference section. So now we know that they are connected to the media literacy, and we know that they are connected to the media literacy as the domain because we have this field specified explicitly. But what if eventually we will start working on this media literacy node and all of the concepts will go to the to the bottom of the screen? We won't be able to see them. We won't be able to have them at hand. For this, to solve this problem, in Tana there is a neat feature called relevant content, and I will show you how to use it. And to use it, we also need to use queries. So let's go to this Supertag configuration. And then to the advanced options. And here, if we scroll down a bit, we're gonna see this related content. So what we're gonna do, we're basically gonna create the query which search for all of the concepts that has this specific concept in the related concepts field. Again, we're going to query concepts, all of the concepts where domain is parent. And this is not very obvious, right? I already told you that Tana has this notation parent, grandparent. So basically every time we want to query something that 1 level of indentation or 2 level of indentation above, we're going to need to use those parent and grandparent, all capitals. So now we have this related concepts dashboard on the right, and we need to refresh it to refresh the query. And now we have all of our 5 concepts from media literacy here available to us at a glance, and it's very handy when you're working on something, right? When you're trying to structure, organize, make sense of things, specifically in the media literacy domain, Now you have all of your concepts here ready for you to reuse. And another trick I want to show you, we're not gonna go into details with this one. It implies using Tana AI. And this is the whole separate topic. This is the video for beginners, so I don't want to make it too complicated. But I want to show you like what Tana is actually capable of when AI integrated properly into it. So let's go to this dashboard concept. And here we're gonna see related concepts, right? But I make this field related concepts AI field. And what it does, essentially, it searches all of the concepts that I have in my workspace using the query. And it selects 3 most important, most relevant concepts to this specific one that we have now on the screen. So you see here, AI selected information hygiene, agency, and decentralization, which is pretty good, right? Those are really relevant. So this task of actually creating meaningful connection is possible to delegate it, at least partially, to AI. When you have the nicely developed structure and when you know what is going on inside your workspace. But again, for this specific use case, we're not going to go into AI in details. I will explore it in a separate video. But I want to show you another use case of AI, which is way more sort of beginners friendly. It's called AI chat. For that, let's go back to our var is a tech insight. And here on the right, you have this icon which opens AI chat. And I will write a very simple prompt here, just based on the information I provided. And in this situation, you see the reference to this node already provided. So AI is going to use all of the information inside this node. So based on this node, write to me a short essay on the topic of discovery of the fire is the major technological revolution. And this is very useful because Tana is going to use only information, hopefully, only information inside the node. The AI still can hallucinate and add things, but it works pretty good already. So it will write your essay based on the information you provide inside this node. It will create the introduction and it will structure it nicely. And as you see here, Tana provided the links to the source, right, which is this specific var is a tag node. So now we have this nice little essay, right? We can work on it, we can edit it and publish if we want, right? We can also add a few nice pictures generated by Midjourney. This one about the cave people. And this one is about power of fire as the terraforming tool. And we have this beautiful essay ready for us, specifically based on the outline we provided. And this is a very simple yet powerful way to apply AI in Tana, to apply it on top of your knowledge, on top of the information you inputted. And you can ask to explain things, you can ask to expand things, you can ask to generate relevant questions. You know, the opportunities are limitless here. So here we are. Remember, we started our journey with just a bunch of unprocessed highlights from the book, and based on those, we built this neat and elegant knowledge system. We went through the flow of DIKW framework, starting with data, raw and unprocessed, then towards information by finding patterns and organizing things, and then to knowledge, meaningfully connecting things and contextualizing, and hopefully eventually to wisdom. Of course, when it comes to the personal knowledge management, Tana is the real powerhouse, and we haven't covered a lot of things like contextual content, semantic functions, comments, and we barely scratched the surface of what AI is capable of in Tana. So I will cover all of those things in my future video. Subscribe if you're interested. And also, if you want to level up your Tana PKM game, check out my course, Advanced Knowledge Systems in Tana. Link in the description, and I will see you in the next video.